For over 3 decades, Empire Entertainment has produced moments for the world's premier brands. Their live entertainment arm, SOHO Live, is now rewriting the global stage. Their first Stardew Valley tour, Festival of Seasons, sold out 63 concerts across 13 countries. And now, the one everyone's raving about, Strands of Harmony, a global orchestral concert series built around Hideo Kojima's world-famous Death Stranding video game series. We sat down with the team.
Ted Miller, I'm CEO of Empire Entertainment Japan. And inside Empire, we've got a couple of other companies in the group. Empire is primarily an experiential agency working for large corporations and brands in terms of developing and fielding really market benchmark projects that help these corporations and brands tell their stories in an experiential and very emotional way. There's SOHO Live, that Guy is CEO of.
Gaetano, CEO of SOHO Live. We specialize in creating concert productions based on music from popular IPs and franchises. So we work directly with video game companies, anime companies to develop with them the official kind of concert experience of their brand or their franchise. And then we tour that around the world. We do shows in more than 25 countries. We've done 120-something shows last year. Something that comes to mind is, like Stardew Valley. We went from doing the 500-seat venue. 1 year later, we were at the Greek Theater in Los Angeles with 5,500 people doing double shows. So being out there, 1 year later, felt pretty special. There have been many others, premiering the Stranding concert at the Sydney Opera House. Mm-hmm. That was definitely a pretty important moment. Madison Square Garden is always selling that out. The theater was very, very special, being someone who spent many years in New York.
The day before, we were doing orchestra rehearsals, and it's just like hearing them, even just tune. Mm-hmm. It was goosebumps seeing this thing come to life. And you look out at this massive house that's like a shell from the inside, not only the outside. And you're just like, wow, this is real now. It's very stressful too, live production. You have one chance and everything goes wrong. We were in Brazil for the World Cup, and our client was Sony. And we were producing, amongst a couple of other things, a gala dinner for their top guests and directors and actors and everything like that for the night before the final of the World Cup.
No pressure.
No pressure at all. And it was a really beautiful environment that we created for this. And as people walked in, we had already spoken with the client. What's the moment we know that this has done it? It's like, if they all scream, wow, when they walk in the door, then we know we have it right. And we open up the door from the sunset where they're having their lounge cocktails, and they start walking in 1,000 people, and they all look around like, jaws on the floor, because it was just, and then the entire night just got better from there. Moments like that, they're like seared into your memory, and like all of the craziness of, Brazil deciding 2 days before, I think maybe it was 3 days before, when we're setting up and doing our build, it's a national holiday because they're in the semifinals. So therefore, everyone's off, including all of our construction workers and everything like that. It's like, wait a second. How are we going to finish this? It's like, we did not build in an extra day into the schedule. So all of that, coming in, all of that pressure, but then knowing that somehow you find a way through the labyrinth to come up with that solution. There's definitely a trust and reliability benchmark that you need to clear before you're going to get significant business. And you only build that over time. So you build it a brick at a time, a day at a time, over years and years, and it can be destroyed in an instant. And I'm a very anxious, neurotic personality, and I think you're quite similar too.
Yeah, there's never a moment of
you never can let up. So if anyone thinks it's sort of like, oh, you can make a quick buck and, not treat your partners or your clients in the best way, and it doesn't matter because there's just another one the other day. No, then it'll be hard to do business here. Yeah, I find it at this point in my career harder to produce in certain countries overseas.
It's a good problem to have.
Yeah, and that's every time we work with Japanese companies, they are, a lot of them, it's true, it takes a while to get them to trust you, but at the same time, they are hungry to get outside of Japan. A lot of companies, they'll create their production in Japan for Japan, and then it's on us to kind of educate them and advise them on how to translate that abroad. A lot of times it's not possible to just copy and paste the Japanese way because for a number of reasons, but because like you're saying, it's not going abroad, you don't have the same processes, you don't have the same teams, the same standards.
And business practices, like what common sense is here doesn't apply.
Here there's
there.
a lot of unspoken things that are just expected.
Yeah.
Whereas abroad you need to spell them out. They're not going to just appear the way they do in Japan a lot of times.
Exactly.
But once you build that trust, it is a very long-term relationship. The first big tour that we did was Stardew Valley, which was actually an American IP. But
It's global, yeah.
it is made by an American developer. It is a global brand, but we had that. There was had like a lower like barrier for us to enter that. And then having done that, showing that to the Japanese companies, showing that we can do a world tour for a game this big, that's what kind of allowed us to get into the Japanese world. And once you have a few in your portfolio, then you get more. Everything will come. But if something goes wrong, it's you risk to lose everything, and everybody talks. It's a very small, at least. Well, maybe on your side it's a little different. But in gaming music, if something goes wrong in Japan, like everyone knows.
I mean, my entire philosophy is, it's like you can spend decades making a reputation, and it can be destroyed in seconds if you don't keep up the quality of what you do every single day, every minute.
I mean, things can happen, and at the end of the day, if something goes wrong and you own up to it, you make up for it. They'll respect it. I mean, sometimes they understand it's outside of people's control. So if something goes wrong, like being upfront about it, being honest, and kind of doing your best for it to not happen again, every relationship can be saved. Yeah.
What advice would you give to yourself if you were going to try and enter the industry now?
Do you know the phrase "ishibashi tataete wataru"?
Watarimasu.
My advice to myself would have been, you can tataku a couple times, but you can go a little faster. At least me, I tend to be a little bit more conservative than is necessary. And to maybe tataku that ishi a couple times too many before proceeding to the next step in whatever our growth is, our strategy, what we're trying to do. But it's not a real regret. I mean, it would just be a piece of advice is you can be a little bit more bold. Yeah. And I don't think people would look at me and say I haven't been. But to myself, I recognize. Yeah.
Looking back, you're like,
yeah. And like meeting Guy was an example in that.
You were bold?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we were both quite bold.
Yeah, but it's something that I would give as advice. I mean, to anyone, and I feel like that's what kind of made Soho Live work and kind of grow from a side business that I was doing to what it is now. It's just doing it very gradually. Started as really like a side job, doing very small projects here and there, kind of trying to support existing productions any way we could with my experience. And then through those relationships, by being on site, by just being CC'd in emails, you learn so much about the full scope and not just the little piece you were handling. So little by little, we got to the point where we realized that we had all the knowledge to make our own productions and to go solo in a sense. But that was built over 7-8 years. It wasn't like 1 year and then you do your own world tour. So being gradual like that, and then I'm also like very risk adverse in that sense. Which sometimes we promote concerts, so that's a horrible quality for a concert promoter to be risk adverse. But I feel like that helped. And not taking too big of a gamble. We took some.
We did some. I mean,
but
more than I would have 5 or 10 years ago.
Right.
Calculated risk. But I mean, the first time we met, maybe a 2-hour meeting or something like that.
Something like that, yeah.
By the end of the meeting, I think it was a bold decision. We basically said, let's do this. Let's create as a full-time business. Let's pull the trigger.
Yeah.
Let's make the investments of time and resources and money that we need to, and let's go.
Yeah, there was a time when I was leaving. I was set on kind of leaving my advertising career, leaving Dance at the time, and kind of starting out on my own. And I think we met just in that when I was in that transition period, and Ted was like, let's do it together. He believed in it, maybe more than I did. So having that support and kind of infrastructure that Empire is providing, a lot of the things that you were saying, like a lot of foreigners may experience as like obstacles in starting a business in Japan, like having access to accounting and payroll and all those things. We were lucky to kind of borrow them from Empire. So that saved a lot of headaches, at least at the beginning. Yeah.
What is something that maybe people coming to work in Japan, established businesses, might not get about dealing with a Japanese work environment right off the bat, other than the obvious?
Yeah. I mean, I think expectations on how fast things move and change, from business relationships to people's desire to move to a new company to, like all of that, take your expectations of how long anything takes, multiply by 5. If your expectations are that everything will happen overnight, it's not great. But the other thing is, once you get that momentum, which takes a long time to build, once you have it, the momentum is there and it's real, and it becomes sort of like a self-fulfilling force. It's also a barrier to entry to other companies that are trying to copy or do the exact same thing. I mean, I've thought for years about, some of the different businesses we have or that I'm involved with or I have friends in. It's like, why are there not more competitors? And it's just the effort, the emotional investment that you need to make over time. It's not a sprint, this marathon of effort. It's heavy lifting, that part. So if you have the wherewithal, if you have that desire and you're willing not to be frustrated that things take time, and the obvious path is not always the one that works, then yeah,
it may be slow, but I think people notice, and then once it starts rolling, it rolls more and more and more, and you kind of become the go-to foreigner for the industry sometimes. Which is a good position to be in.
And then once the momentum is there, there's a whole other set of potential issues.
You ride it.
You're now being dragged by the train, and you're not necessarily steering it as much. So you do have to remember, just keeping up with what's happening, that's not leading a business either. But once the momentum is there, it's like, oh, everything's going forward. You do have to have where are we looking? Are we looking 2 years, 5 years down the line? What's going to change? What nudges do I make to this beast? Because the same thing with changing direction or adjusting the trajectory of a business. It also takes a long time to make that happen.
Yeah, sometimes all these requests keeps coming, and sometimes at least I'm pretty bad at saying no.
Yeah.
Sometimes we're being, like a founder, somebody that kind of came from having no clients or anything. Every time something comes, we kind of don't want to let that pass. Until luckily we get to the point where we have the luxury to do it. And we get to choose who we work with, which is I think the biggest luxury to have when it comes to, any job really. But yeah, managing that workload and not burning, especially yourself out. That's crucial. Yeah.
It's coming in. You did this for us last year. Can you do it again? It's like, to say it's like, why?
Why wouldn't you?
You really have to be disciplined to say, yes, that gave us a little bit of an impetus and it shot us out, but it's got us going a little bit off course. That's a potential future, but that's not the future that we want.
Fit it.
Yeah.
If anything, we do it for the relationships.
Exactly.
There are some existing partners that helped us out when we were starting, and they still treat us very well. And then, if they need a favor, we'll find a time. It's not going to be the most rewarding thing financially, but for the sake of, as a thank you, and for the sake of keeping different relationships, you want to keep your good partners close everywhere, and that's one of the biggest compliments we get is that people like our just network of partners and team that we work with. So we wanna expand that and keep that as close as we can.
Is there anything that you think could be tweaked from somewhere you've dealt with?
I think the critical point is, where are your inputs? And are you limiting your inputs to things within your own sphere of immediate view? And by inputs, I mean it's what do you see? What type of events do you go to? What type of creative are you bringing in? And now it's a lot easier. You see everything on Instagram and stuff like that. But are you really open to and getting these inputs and thinking about them not only in the context, oh, that's cool that someone did that there. We'd never get the licenses to fly 1,100 drones with pyrotechnics on them in Japan. I'll show you the video later. It's insane.
Is that the one in China where they?
No, well, they have that there as well, but there's one that's, I think, being developed for the 250th anniversary of the United States right now. But seeing those inputs and being open and curious and saying, wow, that would be in this context for these people, something that's really good. And also the reverse of that, knowing and having the confidence that what people are coming up with here creatively is applicable globally. Finding great partners that can help them deliver that globally, like us, and partners that you can rely on and trust, and then focus on your good pieces and do. I mean, I'm still shocked that the Toto toilets are not the global standard.
They really should be, right?
I mean, how is that not, but now you go to New York and it's sort of like, that's the Rolls Royce of toilets for people. It's like, hey, you want to come see my new toilet? There was even a South Park episode about it. Yeah.
South Park predicts everything.
Yeah, of course.
No, it's like what you were saying. I think one thing that helps sometimes with Japanese companies, like they'll assume that fans or people that experience these things all around the world, they assume that they're very similar standards to the Japanese audience, which is very wrong. That's why, for example, a concert for Japan is created a certain way, is because it's to meet Japanese people's expectations. But if you bring that abroad, you're playing to a different audience that has very different expectations. So expecting to replicate the experience is not the best way to impress that local audience. And unless you know those audiences, you have no way of knowing what to do. So I feel like it's important when developing something that goes globally to do it with that mindset rather than make it big in Japan and then copy and paste it. Right. Instead of that, just start from the beginning as to what is that everyone is in common that wows them, and focus on that, because there's something, everyone around the world is wowed by this. There are some things that are shared. So that's starting a project with that mindset rather than for the mindset of the Japan market. That would hugely help, I think, Japanese productions.
Is there any government support for these initiatives? Because you guys are doing a lot more work for Japan's image than the government is at times. Does that ever come up?
I mean, we've done some government work that's associated with Cool Japan or stuff like that, but it's very, very limited. I'm just happy to have access to these contents on a local immediate level, and to be able to have help to leverage them. I mean, I would hope at some point that it feels to me, and I'm not an expert, that the significant government funds that go into sponsoring content and to project that soft power maybe are tied up a little bit more in bureaucracy than they need to be. But at the end of the day, you have to answer to the taxpayers and all of those things. So, it's not an easy thing. I do feel that Japan's soft power is competing and often winning globally, not only because of, but sometimes in spite of. I think more could be done, but at the same time, it's working too. One of the examples I could think about is film. When the Academy Awards comes around, take any international film that's been nominated, not for the actual award, but for consideration. So if there's 5 to 6 that are nominated for the actual award, prior to that, there's another 30 or 40 that are nominated for consideration. And then what happens is those go out to all of the judges that will be judging the international film category. Other countries, when they have the benefit of having a film that's in that consideration set, will put serious lobbying money behind them. Well, I have a friend that had a film under consideration a number of years ago. And they came to me and they said, hey, we want to do this lobbying, this and that. We know that everyone's doing it. And it's like, okay, what's the budget? And it was all from the production team. There was nothing at that point from the government. Can't you go out to the government and get some money? I mean, an Academy Award is, I mean, in film, it's massive for not just you as a director and the film itself. It's massive for the entire film industry in Japan. And it wasn't forthcoming, and I don't know if they didn't go to the right sources or it was too hard to get to them or stuff like that. But I do know other countries that pops up and it's like, boom, they're behind it. Not all of them, but it happens. And it's not like a $10,000 grant; it's millions of dollars.
Which is what it
it's
costs to
ads
win
and
those.
variety. It's campaigns. It's special screenings. It's all of this stuff that happens.
Yeah, that's what maybe happened with Parasite, maybe.
I mean,
I don't know.
Korea
It
is
definitely had
considered
that effect.
Korea is considered one of the best at it.
Yeah.
The government really supports the artists and gets behind them, and it does it so nimbly that the way they think about it has got to have like a really flexible, dynamic system that can react quickly, which in the world of content, that moves so quickly, where a boom comes and goes before you can blink your eyes nowadays. You have to have the ability to do that. I think if you looked over the last 20, 25 years, the percentage of total marketing budget that, for example, mass media took over of a client, or someone's pocketbook in terms of what they're spending money on, brands and stuff like that, versus experiences. There's been a dramatic shift, aside from digital media, where, the spending on mass media and on general brands and just owning things is a little bit like this, where the price people are spending to have experiences, both from the brand side as well as people. The average price of a ticket for, a headliner concert now, the tickets that go first are the super double S tickets, 100,000 yen. Those are the ones that are impossible to buy, and that's outpacing inflation. What it's showing is there's a demand and there's a respect for the quality of having a great experience, and people are willing to pay because there's that much value to them. And I don't see that going away ever.
Yeah, unfortunately, I mean, and especially maybe a little less in Japan, but in the US or some other places where inflation has been much worse, that's what really affects our ticket prices. Ticket prices are going up not because we're getting greedier, but really it's the only way to make them happen. We need to work with a lot of union stagehands and musicians. Like their rates go up every year, no matter what. Venues get more expensive, advertising gets more expensive. So on our end, prices going up is purely a way to survive to those other increases. Then there's a whole issue about platinum ticketing and dynamic pricing. That's a very different thing, and I feel like there's definitely people taking advantage of it. But it's I think it's just a consequence of the way that the market is, especially with secondary markets for hard tickets, for paying tickets.
Was there any resistance to establishing Empire in this field?
No, I mean, there was a need in the marketplace, and Empire changed over time. In the beginning, when we created the agency, we were largely providing services such as casting, stage direction, things like that, to large agencies that were working on behalf of clients. Over time, we forecast, and were correct, that the most sophisticated of clients would want to work directly with the people that were actually creating and fielding the ideas. It's a matter of time, it's a matter of budget, but it's also largely a matter of purity of idea. The more steps and people it goes through, the less fun and interesting it generally becomes. At the end of the day, the content is king. Right? So whether it's content's based upon a famous brand or an IP or something original that we create, was something that was really exciting for me. And that critical moment was, not a single one, but just over many times, the thing that always got me excited was being in the moment and having something that really hits you in the heart. And that only happens with experience. That, and also understanding. I get bored really easily. So I don't want to do the same thing over and over again. So the projects we generally do, every time we're creating and conceiving it from scratch.
It's completely different in your...
It has to be, yeah. And, the KPI is, do you get the wow? And are people blown away? It's like, what is that? And did you come up with that idea, and were you able to deliver it into reality? and then move people's hearts in that way.
I remember the first production we did when we did launch the first Stardew tour. We worked on it for a year and a half. We planned a whole bunch of shows. And the very first show was a pretty small one, like 500 people in Los Angeles. But just seeing the people there and seeing like the production that we created from zero, like coming together there. I remember thinking, if the tour ends now, like I'm happy. Like, we have like 100 other shows planned, but like this was worth it.
That was worth it.
Yeah.
Good.
Thank you so much.
Cool to see you again.
Yeah, please.
Patting yourself on the back, Empire's made it. Where are you in 2040?
My goodness.
Because you're already
How old am
everywhere.
I? In
know,
2040, I'll be...
Like 30 now?
Yeah, in 2040, I'll be 70 years old.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you're not the type that's going to hang up your hat. Like, what do you
No. I mean, we will be creating more contents. We'll be, creating things of our own. And I don't know what the entertainment and the experience industry will be at that point, but we'll definitely, be tickling people's hearts with whatever tools happen to be in the market at the time. Thank you, Avery. Appreciate it.
Ted, that was awesome.